Now, the news for South Mississippi. WLOX News this week.
Prices falling at the gas pump. Hear about the connection South Mississippi has to U.S. energy. Plus, boil water notices for days in the city of Biloxi. Water contaminated by E. coli. And a police call turns deadly in Bay St. Louis. Killed in the line of duty. Bay St. Louis, the scene this week. 2 police officers gunned down. Another reminder of how dangerous it is to enforce the law. I'm Dave Elliott. Thanks for joining me this morning. And here to talk about this, criminologist Tom Payne. Tom, somber, horrible, tragic story. Thanks for coming in and being with us today.
I appreciate the ability to take part in the discussion about this.
A lot of details are still being held close to the vest. We don't know a lot about this case, but just in general, 4:30 in the morning in the parking lot of a motel. That's not a very good situation right off the bat. But it was a call for a welfare check. It seems routine, but it was anything but routine, and it underscores the volatility of law enforcement.
Absolutely. And in training, we very seldom ever say routine, because there's no call that's routine, and if we ever allow it to be that, it's not it's inappropriate for us as far as trainers to discuss it in that regard, because as you say, the volatility of the situation, the volatility of the individuals involved are unpredictable, so it could change in seconds.
And that's all it takes is a split second, and I think a lot of times people forget that. We talk about that anything but routine, and officers don't look at it that way. Take a domestic call, take a traffic stop. All of these things, something can go horribly wrong in the blink of an eye.
Absolutely. And that's what we try to impress upon our officers. They are aware of it, and they're prepared for it. But there are just some things you can't train for and you can't be prepared for. It just happens. And that's the nature of being a law enforcement officer. You put yourself out there on the street realizing that you yourself could be at jeopardy in split seconds. And you rely on your training. And we try to train as best we can to prevent things from happening to our officers.
Well, let's talk about the impact on a specific police department. In this case, it would be Bay St. Louis, but just the law enforcement community in general. You know, it runs the gamut from shock to grief, maybe anger, uncertainty, all these kinds of things then within the police community.
Well, I have a great deal of respect for public law enforcement officers, having been one myself, and I can assure you that what we've all gotten, both citizen and police, is similar to a gut punch, and that's exactly what happened. We got a gut punch. Unfortunate reality of the street, and we're just now trying to catch our breath, and I don't think we will for a good period of time. It's a terrible tragedy.
And it really also underscores the brotherhood, and we have to include women in that, of the law enforcement community, because officers, you know, they're going to be, when there are funeral services, departments down from around the region, other departments around the country, reaching out to Bay St. Louis or whatever the city happens to be.
Yeah, well, there is a fraternity of law enforcement officers, and it's because of shared experiences, what we have to go through, your training. It's very much like the military. The military says that are in the military, many of the guys that I've seen speaking about what they're fighting for, their buddy, not necessarily for the Constitution or anything bigger. They're fighting for that member of their team, more so than anything.
I've always heard that same thing from guys in the military. They're not out there, you know, if they're in a foxhole, they're fighting for their buddies. It's not at that moment the flag or the political cause or anything else. What about the impact, the residual impact, something like this, and it happens in all parts of the country every day? Retention of police officers, and then recruiting police officers, because it makes it, and then we have this environment in America now where police officers are kind of under social and political fire all the time.
Well, I think that's one of the problems we have today in policing, is that we are seeing low retention and low recruitment rates because of the things that have occurred, and violence against police have increased 19% from 2021 to 2022. I was noticing a statistic that the FBI put out, and so it's not something that we seem to be occurring or are perceived to be occurring. It's happening. And so I think part of that's cultural. Part of that is media bias against anybody that's in authority. And I think that's the nature of being in a free society. Nobody likes to be told what to do. And unfortunately, our law enforcement officers are having to be placed in those positions to do that.
And cities, whether it's New York City or Moss Point, Mississippi, are trying to find and keep police officers. It's happening. You're seeing officers retire early. You're seeing them reconsider career choices. You're seeing all of these things happening within the police community right now.
That's absolutely true. It's a great recruitment tool for law school and graduate school, I can tell you that.
Yeah. You know, I'm not in a situation like we've been talking about, or this Bay St. Louis story, but when it comes to weaponry that police are carrying nowadays, this would be more in a street environment on the south side of Chicago or something like that. Officers still carrying basically 9mm and Glocks, things like that, where they're kind of outgunned by the bad guys if they have AR-15s or AK-47s or whatever they might have. But that's a tricky one for law enforcement, isn't it?
Right. I think we're armed sufficiently for the job that has to be done, but we have our SWAT units and our special units who will come in if we need them. Most law enforcement officers now carry higher powered weapons in their trunks of their cars, and we have usually, when I was in law enforcement, we had a 12-gauge shotgun with slugs, and that's the most effective anti-personnel gun, or it's very effective anti-personnel gun, if you need something a little bigger than your revolver. But I don't think we need to arm ourselves anymore. I think if we arm ourselves like a military occupying force, then we take away that community contact that we should have. And it's up to the law enforcement officers and the community to help each other. And that's what we're here for. That's what law enforcement is here to do, to help the community. And I think the community has in the past done a good job in supporting it. Not necessarily other places in the United States, but definitely here down in South Mississippi. The community has always supported their law enforcement officers, and we need to be very careful that we don't stray from that.
Okay, well, that tragedy, the latest involving police in Bay St. Louis this past week, and coast-wide, everybody is heartbroken over that, there's no doubt. Tom, thanks for coming in and being with us this morning.
Thank you.